All right, welcome back. This is week two of the Lunch and Learn series. So the whole series, as you may or may not know already, it's fat loss for busy working moms. What actually works? So today we're jumping into exercise. So we have talked about nutrition. We've talked about like a lot of the common mistakes. We've talked about things that you might be trying. Exercise is probably one of them. So that's important to include because exercise, some form or fashion, is important in a fat loss journey, but there are certain exercises that are more worth your time and some that are absolutely not necessarily bad, but I would say not worth your time. So if you only have 30 minutes, 45 minutes to work out a few days a week. You want it to be effective, right? You don't want to kill yourself in the gym, but you also don't want to waste your time. So we need that happy medium. And so that's what we're going into today. Um, Exercise, I'll give you my very short exercise backstory. I am not a gym rat. I didn't grow up as a three-season athlete. That would be my husband. He was a three-season athlete in high school before I knew him. For me, I was on the tennis team and I only did that for a couple years. I did like a couple rec leagues, like very informal athlete stuff. So I wouldn't call myself much of an athlete. I grew up riding bikes and like going outside and so on. But I really didn't do a lot of after school activities and I really didn't do many sports till like middle school and high school. And that I wouldn't even call that like it wasn't even most of the year. So my exercise that I have picked up was mostly as an adult, like post college. And so, yes, I do exercise. And yes, I do think it's really important now as a health coach being able to help you lose weight. It is important, but I don't come from someone who it was a big part of my life until I would say in the last decade or so. And so that perspective for different people who have done exercise their whole life, they're probably going to be a lot more regimented about it, or maybe they were really good when they were younger, but have fallen off since then. So everyone has their own backstory when it comes to exercise. I will also say this in the beginning, I'm not a bodybuilder. If you look at me, I would say like I'm healthy and that is my goal. I have muscle toning. I'm working on my abs. Like that is a personal goal of mine, but I'm not up there doing bodybuilding shows. I'm not up there benching like the heaviest thing that I could possibly bench or squatting or whatever, anything like that. And so as a coach, it's important to know who, like what the coach stands for and what they talk about. So I am promoting overall health. I'm promoting weight loss, but in a sustainable way, something that's going to work for you. I'm coming from the stance of I am a parent who works, and the people I tend to talk to are also busy working moms. And so you don't have 10 hours a week to exercise. You might only have 30 minutes a couple of days a week, right? And so we need it to work for you. But at the same time, we want to be around for our kids for a long time. We want our heart to be strong. We want our body to be strong. We want all of these things to be healthy so that we're here for a long time. So I'm not going to be the coach that's like, you have to be in the gym at all times, lifting super heavy, trying to get to the bodybuilder physique. I am the person who's going to say exercise is important. It's a piece of the plan. It is not the only piece. I would say nutrition counts more. Making sure you're filling in the gaps and not missing some of the root cause. I think that counts quite a bit. So this is a piece of the puzzle. It is not the entire puzzle itself. I am not solely a fitness coach. So I always want to say that up front so you know who you're talking to. And of course, that influences like my opinion and how I think about exercise. So it's important to know that up front. So we'll dive into exercise today. This one is probably a little shorter than the other ones. You know, last week we did macros versus balanced play. We talked about cortisol a lot, the healthy habits that are actually, I would call more mistakes that might be stalling progress, and how to actually go ahead and see progress. Later in this series, we'll talk about biohacking and supplements and peptides and all of the different things that you could take to potentially speed up progress, but like, are they worth it? We'll talk about age and how things feel harder as you age. And then I have this highlighted in teal and I will refer to it later. Like, I really want you to come to this because all of these are small pieces. They're all pieces of the puzzle. However, I need to put all the pieces together for you so you feel like you have a cohesive strategy that will actually work. So that is Thursday, and we're working up to that. But here's where we are on the series. All right, so talking about exercise, we know we are supposed to exercise, right? We have heard that probably your entire life. My kids did like Kids Heart Challenge. We called it jump rope for life. And they even in the gym classes, when they're very, very young, they're like, yes, we want to promote heart health. And PE is a class and we have to take it. And so we've heard this growing up. We know, like, in a general sense, we want to be healthy, right? We want to have a strong heart. We want to have good digestion. We want to have good mobility. You may not have thought about this, but when you are 80, 90, 100, can you sit on the floor and get up? Right? That is overall mobility for the long term, for the longevity piece. Maybe you can't sit on the floor and stand up right now, right? Like wherever you are, we maybe are working toward different goals. And everyone has their own goals, but the people, again, that I tend to talk to want to lose weight, burn fat, tone up their belly. And so, in order to do that, we do need to burn some calories to reduce the fat. We want to build muscle so we can tone up. And so, that tends to be like the category of people I am talking to. All right. So, there it goes, making sure it's already all in there. So, when I talk to people, they come into different camps. Sometimes they are more in that beginner camp. They know they need to be working out more or they need to be more consistent with their workouts in order to get results, but they just feel overwhelmed and they don't know where to start, or they don't want to start a plan only to fail again. And so they have this perfectionist mentality. And so that is, I would say, very solidly one group of people that I talk to very often. And then there's a second group of people that I talk to that are already working out a lot, sometimes 4, 5, 6 days a week. Maybe they're walking every single day, aiming for the 10,000 steps every day on top of workouts, but they're really not seeing results for all of their hard work. They're not toning up. The belly fat's still there, weight loss is stalled, and you're like, what the heck? I'm working so hard, but I'm not seeing any results from my progress. So two very different camps, but I have clients in both of them, and so there's a different strategy depending on where you're starting, and we'll break that down. So you're coming to this thinking, well, what should I do? What do I do in order to see it? And I know that's a really tough question because there is so much conflicting advice, right? All over the internet. It's like, oh, well, make sure to go to Orange Theory 5 days a week. Make sure to run interval training and make sure to do running and work up to running a marathon. And then you have people who are like, just walk. I see it. I have an app, not an app, an ad that comes up and it's like, I dialed in exactly how many steps I needed to do to lose this many pounds. And it was like, just walking could be enough. And it's like, well, what do I do? There's so many different people talking. And of course, it is very unique to your life and everything you have going on. So we're going to break it down today. And I want you to be able to leave this knowing, hey, this is a really good path forward for me. I'm even giving you a flow chart at the end, so to kind of give you if this, do this. And so we'll talk about what makes sense for you. All right, so if you are in that camp of I am doing so many things, but nothing is working, here are some of the reasons why. And I would say these are the typical reasons that you feel like progress is really stalled. A lot of times it's like you're doing a lot of workouts, but they're the wrong kind of workouts for your body. And very often, like I brought up Orange Theory because I've had quite a few people come in and they're like, I'm doing Orange Theory. I'm working out a lot. I'm working out 50 minutes, 5 days a week. I'm doing all this. And it's like a lot of running and a lot of HIIT workouts. And so, too much cardio, a good takeaway for you is too much cardio can actually stress your body out. When your body's stressed, you're in that fight or flight state. You're going to hold on to belly fat. You're not going to get rid of it because your body senses that there's something really wrong and it's trying to keep you alive. This could cause inflammation. It could cause even feeling like really bloated, but generally it's just stalled results. And that comes from doing too much cardio. So if you're doing like an hour a day on the elliptical or the Stairmaster or spin class, and that's like your typical style, most of the time you're doing cardio, that can really slow down your body because it's stressed out. And same with that, kind of going with the second bullet point, if you are not doing enough strength training, then you're not building the muscle. So you might be burning the calories, right? I always love the machines that are like, well, you burned 300 calories in this session. I'm like, yes, like I feel so good, but it's not building muscle. So no matter what, you're never getting that toned look. So if you're looking for abs or you're looking for biceps or you're looking for whatever, you do need to build muscle in those places for it to stand out and pop. That comes from strength training. Now, keep in mind, strength training could be like you are lifting, I think these are 5 pound weights, right? You could lift 5 pound weights to build muscle. You could lift 35 pound weights to build muscle. And that looks very different depending on where you are in your progress. Um, but strength training means some sort of weight resistance, could even be body weight resistance to build muscle. Okay. Number three, or bullet point number three, is that you are inconsistent. So if you're in that camp of like, I know I should work out more and I'm not really working out, if you are inconsistent with your workouts, you aren't going to be building toward that toned body, toward that result. Same thing if you are doing random workouts every week. This is true, especially if you're doing classes. Like you're showing up to a class, that trainer has no clue what you are planning unless it's like, oh, we are doing this for 6 weeks together, the same trainer, knowing that the same group of people is there. But typically that is not what you are doing. And you're showing up to a random class, you're like, I'm going to do the 6:30 because that works for my schedule. Well, they don't know your background, your history. They might not have a specific or structure, and they might not be able to get you the results that you were looking for because it's just random. It's kind of I don't want to say thrown together, but like it's not purposefully planned for you. And the last thing that I see people do is like, hey, I really want to lose weight. I have a cruise coming up. I have spring break coming up. I have summer coming up. I'm going to do 2 a days. I'm going to work out 6 days a week. And sometimes your body really doesn't need that. It needs different type of structure and support, and pushing harder kind of goes backwards for you. So these are the things that don't work. Let's talk about what actually works. So number one, you have to like the exercise that you are going to do. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to show up. That's part of that consistency piece. Like showing up over time is going to be helpful. I showed this picture because this is a Pilates class, which I would say it does fall more into strength training because there's time under tension, there's resistance, there's weight. Sometimes it is body weight, sometimes it's light, sometimes it's heavy. But for me, this is an exercise, and my husband actually goes there too, that we like and we show up to, and it is motivating for us. Okay. That that is really important. If playing tennis is fun for you, go play tennis or pickleball, right? That's the new trend. Find something you like. If it's going and walking with a group of moms, maybe you all are pushing strollers or your kids are at the park and you're going to walk around the park and you're going to do that because it gives you like that social connection. Great. That make that a part of your schedule. So that's thing number one. Strength training doesn't matter if it's 5 pounds, 35 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever. You don't have to be a bodybuilder, but some strength training, especially when you hit perimenopause, especially when we are trying to work on like bone density and not just toning up, strength training does need to be applied. And I mentioned this could be body weight. Like it doesn't have to be full on lifting, weights like a dude would, like a bro, but using some sort of weights. Walking and neat activity. Neat, this is to define that, that's the like baseline metabolism that you have, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So it's like if you are just sitting, are you burning calories? Not as much as if you were walking while you're listening to this, or if you were on, at a standing desk or something like that. So the more neat activity you have, coupling that with getting your steps, you're walking in, that's going to help get more movement and it burns calories, but it also like keeps your metabolism raised. I don't think everyone needs 10,000 steps, but I would say everyone needs to do some sort of movement during your day. So if you go and work out for 30 minutes or an hour, it doesn't cancel out 8 hours of sitting at the desk. There has to be some movement in there as well. go in the right direction. Overtraining does not work, so don't overtrain. So that would include don't just do a bunch of hit activities with poor recovery. Don't just do cardio. So if you want to keep these in because hey, you like them and you enjoy them, couple them with strength training, right? So it's not all or nothing. You include that weight resistance as well. And then consistency. So sometimes my clients ask me and they're like, I feel like I need some variety in my workouts. And so I push them a little bit. I'm like, do you need variety because you're bored and your brain is bored, or are you needing variety because your muscles aren't progressing? And it's usually our brain. Like our brain gets bored before our body gets bored. Our body actually really likes stability and security and feeling safe. And our muscles grow when we give attention to them. So, for example, if you were to do bicep curls, actually, I'm going to do a different example. If you were to do push-ups every single day, doesn't matter if you are just starting, maybe you do 10 push-ups, maybe you do 50, maybe you do 100 push-ups. And if you do push-ups every day, you're really going to grow your shoulders, your chest is going to like feel a lot stronger, even the backs of your arms. You're going to get really strong by doing push-ups because you have consistency with those muscle groups. So that is really, really important. Most people overlook this part. And so this is the issue. Um, Making sure that you're getting enough sleep and your recovery is good. So you're not working out 2 a days most of the time. You are getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That's really key. So giving yourself that time for recovery. Fueling right, and this is totally out of the scope of today. You'll see this throughout other parts of this Lunch and Learn series. But if you're not eating right, then you're not fueling muscle growth. If you don't have enough protein, you're not going to support that recovery and that muscle growth. But also fat loss. You need carbs. You need carbs to have enough energy to push your body, right? So fueling right, and that includes water as well. And lastly, you need to fill in the gaps if needed with supplements. So knowing number one that there are gaps, and number two, how to appropriately fill them in so you're not just like peeing out expensive pee, but it's actually purposeful. And so we'll go into that. I think that's tomorrow in the series. So moving ahead, we'll talk about supplements and making sure that that part makes sense for you. So because this is not a just do this and it will work. It is a multifaceted approach. There's a lot going on here. Essentially, this is where people get stuck, particularly women, because you have all the other things going on, right? And it's really easy to be like, I'll put off exercise. I don't need to go to the gym today. I don't need to pull out my weights today and do a home workout. I'm just going to skip on this one. I'll come back to it. So what happens is, oh, I have 30 minutes. I am going to go do something. Maybe I'll go do a workout. And so you turn on whatever, Beachbody, you turn on some sort of YouTube video and you're like, I'm going to do this. And you pick something random that looks good for you today and you do it, but it's not part of a program. Or you go for a walk or you do this. And so like if it's random, it's not part of a plan, it's not really progressing you forward. So having the right structure, making sure you're lifting heavy enough. So progressive overload. So you're building those muscles, you're burning them to fatigue, but doing it in a way that doesn't hurt yourself. That is really key. And then knowing when to switch things up. So looking at data, right? Being able to look back at what you've been doing and how long you've been doing it, and just knowing that if you build on it, you should be getting stronger every time. So you should be lifting heavier after 6 weeks than you were at the beginning, right? So knowing when to make those adjustments. And that's hard, takes a lot of practice and skill and attention, right? And so if you are throwing it together because you're busy, and I totally get that because that's who I work with, then having that support in your back pocket, I think would be really helpful. So step one, download this. And for anyone watching live, I will go ahead and put this into the chat in just a moment. And so you will have a copy of this. And going through this flowchart, so you know, here's actually where I'm getting hung up. So start with whatever exercise you are currently doing and kind of follow it. And sometimes it's like, hey, cool, you're doing exactly what you need to do, just keep it up. And sometimes it's going to ask deeper questions for you to think through, well, what can I do to actually get better results? Okay. Step two, and I'm going to point you toward the next thing that we are doing. So if you don't show up every day, at least show up on Thursday because that is where we put it all together. Why you're eating healthy and working out, still not losing weight, how to finally lose those last 10 to 20 pounds. This is putting all the pieces together. So at least show up and look at that if you haven't seen any other day of this series. So attend the masterclass. And if you want that more personalized attention, right, it is helpful to have someone who has walked through it before and knows to include all of these things. So looking at your individual schedule, well, when are we going to have those workouts? What days and what times are we going to do it so it's consistent? Oh, we need to factor in your stress. I don't want you to be so stressed out that when we add in workouts, it actually inflames you more because you're not getting enough recovery. So we need to look at stress. We need to look at your metabolism. What are you eating? How are you fueling yourself? What else is going on? And of course, what are your goals? Because if your goals are to have a ripped six pack, we definitely need a different exercise plan than if your goals are to go from 200 pounds to 175, right? That is a very different plan based on where you are starting and where you want to go. So if you would like that personalized plan, you want that customized, like, hey, I need this tailored just for me. That is what I do in my coaching. So I will drop the link as well below, even in the replay, but also live. You can absolutely apply for coaching if this feels like it would be something that's helpful for you. If not, take these advice. Like I'm trying to give you so much value that you have a place to start. But this is typically that you have tried certain things and it is not working. That's where I tend to talk to people for that coaching. Different options are available. We can talk about what makes most sense for you. But the first step is just to reach out and say, hey, raise your hand. That is me and I'm interested. Okay. So with that, I will go ahead and end this for today. I'll remind you that next up in this series, we will talk about supplements and peptides, GLP-1s, all the different things to fill in the gaps and what makes sense for you. So that is coming up next. And also that masterclass is coming up Thursday. So I'd love to see you at least at one of those. And then I will talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your day.